Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is replace. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear replace used is to mean to take the place of someone or something. As I thought about this particular verb, I was thinking about the weather where I live, and we have had some beautiful days. But unfortunately, our sunshine is going to be replaced with snow and other maybe freezing rain this weekend. So it's taking the place of. Hope that helps explain that definition. A second way we might use replace is to mean to provide or find a substitute for something that is broken, old, or not working. With this particular definition, many people think about things around their home, right? When particular things stop working, right, we might have to purchase a new one to replace it, to find a substitute. A third way we can use the verb replace is to mean to fill the place or the role of someone. Another way to think of that is to provide a substitute. So sometimes as people leave places of employment, there are discussions about the person who will replace the person who is departing. Right? So take over their duties or their responsibilities. A fourth way we can use the verb replace is to mean to put something back in its previous place or its previous position. You should know that replace is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, we need to drop the E because our last part of the word here, or the ending syllable here, ends with a vowel, consonant, and then an E. So I'm going to drop the E before I add ing, and that makes replacing. To form the past tense and participle forms of this verb, all you need to do is add D, since this verb already ends with an E. Now, our base verb, replace, ends with an S sound. Now, you might be noticing, right? Wait, Katie, this ends with the letter CE, and you're right, it does, but the ending sound is an S sound. And S sounds are unvoiced in English. This means the ED ending is going to make a T sound, and we're not going to add an extra syllable as we say it. So the past tense and the participle form of this verb should sound like this: replaced, replaced. Okay. Now, you might encounter a phrasal verb with our verb of the day. That is to replace by or replace with. The meaning is not all that different here. So, again, we're talking about substituting a person or a thing in the place of someone else or something else. An example of this might be: are we going to be replaced by lower paid employees? So again, that idea maybe of substituting a person, or here maybe a group of people, with other individuals. Today, I thought we could review how to make more information questions in the simple future. Many teachers and textbooks call these WH questions, and that's great. Um, I like saying more information just to distinguish these are not questions that we can answer with a yes or a no. We're generally going to need to answer them with more words and more information. Today, we're going to focus on making questions with will. Will is one of the ways we talk about the simple future in English. Okay? And I think it might be the easiest way to make our simple future sentences. So, most of the time, our questions are going to follow the format that's here on the screen. We start with a question word, we use will, then our subject, and then the base verb. Okay, so we don't add any special endings to the verb. No S, no ing, no ed. Okay? Now, if you'd like, You can pause the screen here a second and practice making some different types of questions. You can alter the subject or change the verb to make a few different questions. I'll do one as an example, and I'm going to get my little highlighter here to kind of point out, right? I could say, when will you wear those shoes, right? Maybe something seems kind of different. Maybe they don't seem practical for your daily life, right? So again, feel free, pause, take a moment, see if you want to make a few more questions. But now what I'm going to do is move on and make some more questions for you using our verb of the day, replace. Okay. We're going to talk about a few different question words and look at some example sentences. The first thing I want to talk about is the question word when, W-H-E-N. This is a question we say for time, and this can be time on a clock. It could also be time as in a particular date. And again, this could include months, days of the week, years, any of that will work. Okay. With our question word with our question word when, you're going to see us following the same pattern. So an example of this might be, when will you replace your missing ID? Okay, so here something has been lost, right? And now someone is asking about your plans for finding or getting a substitute. Another type of question we ask is about the manner in which something is being done. For this, we use the question word how, H-O-W. An example of this might be, how will the company replace the 100 workers who quit? Okay. So again, you can see that pattern. How will, subject, base verb. Another type of question we ask is to understand the reason for something. We use the question word why, W-H-Y. An example of this, why will they replace their landline phone? Okay. Now, many times I like to point out with students, if you're ever doing activities where you're trying to match or think about how to answer a particular question with why, it's really common to hear or see people use the word because to begin their answer, especially in conversation when it's a bit more informal, right? So here we might be asking why they're going to maybe get another landline phone because that might seem unnecessary in 2023, right? We might think they already have cell phones, they don't need this type of phone. But they might have plans to do this for a good reason, right? And so our question is asking about that reason. Another type of question we ask is called a determiner. So many times this is a question about a thing or an object. An example of this might be, what will she replace? Okay. Now, there are a couple questions that do not follow our exact pattern. And so I want to take a moment and talk about those. There's another determiner or a way to ask about a thing or an object, and that's with the question word which, W-H-I-C-H. What makes this a little different is immediately after which, we're going to get a noun. Okay? And the reason for this is we're generally asking someone to make a choice between two things or among a group of things. Okay? So our pattern here, we'll have our question word which, we're going to have a noun, and then we'll follow that other pattern. We'll go back to will, subject, base verb. An example of this, which light bulb will you replace? Right? So maybe we're in a room where there are many light bulbs, right? And so we're asking someone to make a choice or select one. Okay? The last type of question we're going to discuss today is a question about a person. Right? So what makes this a little bit different is our question word who WHO, is both a question word and the subject many times. So there's no other subject for us to include. So here in the simple future, you're going to see who, you'll see will, and our base verb. You can see that in my example here. Who will replace you at the clinic? So maybe I have a friend who's a nurse or a doctor, some other kind of medical worker who's announced they're leaving, right? I want to know who is going to be the substitute. Now let's move on and talk about some words that are related to our verb replace. And the first word we're going to discuss today is the noun replacement. Replacement can have a couple different meanings. The first would be the action or the process of replacing someone or something. Let's take a look at this meaning in a sentence. The ramp replacement was the first step in making the park more accessible. Okay? So here maybe we can imagine there was some type of device, a ramp, right, that might allow someone who's using some type of support to walk or maybe even a wheelchair that made it difficult to access. Maybe it was broken, not working well. Here, we're describing that action or the process of replacing the ramp. So there must be something new here. A second way to use the noun replacement is to refer to a person or a thing that is taking the place of another. An example of this might be, can you continue working until we hire a replacement? Okay. Might be a question you hear after you announce that you will be leaving your place of employment. Especially at small organizations, they might ask you to stay for a period of time until they can have someone who will take your place. Another related word you might encounter is the adjective replaceable. And that suffix able should signal to us that this is going to mean able to be, and then we can go back to our root word here. So able to be replaced. An example of this might be, don't worry about it, the tablecloth is replaceable. So here, maybe someone has spilled something, maybe it seems the tablecloth has been ruined. And someone is trying to be very reassuring, very kind with a sentence like this to let them know, right? There's no problem. We can get a new one. Now, one last word for us to discuss today. I've added the prefix IR. IR here, which can mean not in English. So we've got a new adjective. It's irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. This means that something is not able to be replaced, or it's impossible for it to be replaced if it has been lost or damaged. An example of this might be, our family photos are irreplaceable, right? If something happens to photos going back for decades and decades within my family, are they're damaged or they're lost, right? I can't go back and recreate those things. I want to say a quick thank you to a viewer who suggested this particular verb of the day. And I want to encourage anyone who is watching to make suggestions anytime you're encountering some verbs that are maybe a little difficult to use or difficult to understand. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.